Let's move on to the Northeast 8. Obviously, a new conference, 6 former NHC teams with Huntington North and Leo. I think we've been quietly wanting to see what Leo could do in another conference since they've been dominant in the ACAC in years past. Who do you see winning this conference? Because Leo has to go in as one of the favorites. I mean, they're one of the most intriguing storylines in this conference.
Yeah, I think, we did it with the SAC, 3 teams atop that conference. I think you could do the same thing in the Northeast 8 with East Noble, New Haven, and Leo. Hey,
that's what I got written down. Great minds. I don't know what our excuse is, but great minds.
So, I pick New Haven right now just because I really like their skill players. I think Keyshawn Moore is going to have a breakout season. At quarterback, they got Nishan Jones back. They got Tyon Woods and Dimitri Shaw from Northrop to transfer in. Like their skill position players. East Noble, Andrew McCormick, man, that kid's going to break out, sophomore quarterback this year. Probably make some sophomore mistakes, but also make some plays that you're used to seeing out of seniors. So that kid can throw the ball. And Leo brings a lot back, like you mentioned. Craig Klopfenstein back at quarterback, solid. But like we mentioned with Homestead and Carroll, you're going to get it week in and week out, okay? You're not playing any patsies where you're going to be able to show up and be up by 40 at halftime. So Leo is going to have an interesting 9 weeks of the season because they're not going to get very many breaks.
I have it flipped, the exact opposite. I had Leo, East Noble, New Haven. I like Leo. I know that they're going to be tested week in and week out like they've never been. But I like Cray at quarterback. I like Juwan Allen. I think he's one of the guys we don't talk about just because he's a lineman, but is a very talented high school football player. Austin Rinker's going to step up, I think, for them. I just think Gunnar Brown, Tyler Hensinger, they have a lot of players with experience. It would concern me more were they jumping into this conference without skill players and that many guys with experience. But Coach Satter's got a lot of guys coming back who've seen what Friday night is all about, albeit not on this level. So I think that's going to help them out tremendously. East Noble, David Salazar, I think is going to step up and be a huge leader for them this season. Like him a lot. Jake Torrey, we saw him on Friday nights make some plays for that East Noble offense on the outside. And I put New Haven third. They could easily be first.
Yeah, I think
Coach Rowland. I think in the NHC with Carroll and Homestead when they were in there, New Haven got underrated year in and year out, and all they did was win football games. So I think they have a lot of momentum heading into this season.
Yeah, I think what's going to be interesting with East Noble and New Haven in particular is they had always the chip on their shoulder, and we are the hunters. We're hunting for Homestead and Carroll. Now all of a sudden they're the hunted. They're the top dogs in that conference. So. The pregame speeches change, the halftime speeches change, because now you are in a different role. Now you are a top of the conference and everyone wants to beat you, as opposed to Homestead and Carroll are our top targets. Now everybody's looking at New Haven and East Noble to knock them off.
Huntington North, they've had strung together a couple.
They'll be 5 and 5. That's it. You don't even know anything else about Huntington North.
I was going to say it's like 3 5-5 seasons, back to back to back. But they haven't seen a lot of the competition in the area. They've actually been pretty good in their own conference in the NCC. They're 5-2 in that conference last year. More of a basketball conference.
Yeah, I think it's the last 4 or 5 years they're 5-2 in that conference.
Yeah.
But I am not, and I've said this for years. I think the NCC is the worst big conference football.
Really.
In the state of Indiana.
Really good basketball conference.
Yeah, it's very good basketball. Not as great as people like to think it is. I mean, it's not 1978 anymore, but. I digress.
You're a harsh man.
I digress. No, but you look at teams like schools like Anderson in there and Muncie and those states. Kokomo is always reasonably solid. But Huntington North, I think they're 1-17 the last several years out of conference. So, and granted, they're playing some Fort Wayne schools and sectionals and stuff like that. But how does that translate into the Northeast 8? I don't know. I think they're going to be solid, but. I think you would look at it and you would think from the NCC to the NE8 is maybe a step down in competition based on the school enrollments and the sizes, but I think it's a significant step up in competition for Huntington North.
Agreed. DeKalb. Will Crispin, you could make an argument he's the best player in this conference. I love Will Crispin.
Yes.
I don't know why D1 college football coaches are sleeping on this guy because he's got the size. He's got better speed than you might think, better athleticism than you might think. And you got Harrison Price back there at quarterback. We saw at the beginning of the season that DeKalb was starting to build some momentum under Pete Kemp, and as their schedule got tougher, the wins didn't come quite as easily as they did before. Bryce Samuelson's a big lineman that they can count on week in and week out. What do you see for DeKalb? Because we saw them take a step up last season. How do they do it again?
I think, what the interesting thing with Chrisman last year and Price was that everybody knew when they were passing it was going to Will Chrisman, and they still couldn't really slow it down. I mean, that kid, he had 12, 13 touchdowns last year. And so I think they need to complement those guys better. They need to spread the ball out a little more, not just much like Lures. They need to find some secondary guys that can kind of carry the load a little bit. And DeKalb just needs to keep improving that defense. I think that's huge. As long as they can keep people off the scoreboard like they did at times last year, I think they're going to continue to improve, much like Columbia City.
Yeah, that was one of the teams I had my surprise team as Columbia City. I think they'll be better this season with Brett Fox back there. But what do you think about Columbia City? What do you think about Belmont? What do you think about Norwell? Because when you take a look at Norwell, you got the big guy on the offensive line, Curtis Blackwell. He's very well going to end. I know, 6'5", almost 300 pounds, and he doesn't look it at all. As far as the weight goes, he could be even bigger. He may end up playing in the Big Ten. He's only a junior. Great offensive lineman, one of the best players in this conference, one of the best players in Northeast Indiana. But they've got to replace Pearson Harnish, who did so much for them, and a host of other seniors that had really a better career, I think, than people anticipated.
Yeah, with Blackwell, I think, he's been hampered by injuries his first 2 years off and on in football. And I think, junior year is when you really start seeing kids really blossom into the legit Division I prospects. And I saw him work out at the Ohio State camp over the summer. And that kid's going to get some high major offers when it's all said and done, as long as he can stay healthy. So, like I mentioned, who's going to block for? I don't know. I mean, they got gutted. If there was any team that was truly gutted by graduation, other than maybe Wayne, is Norwell. But I would say Norwell even worse, because I think you replace at Wayne talent with at least some more talent. I don't know what Norwell has, really. So it's going to be interesting to see. And then Columbia City, like what Coach Brett Fox did. I mean, he's the 5 wins last year, the most for a first-year coach in Columbia City history. That's huge for them, a big step up. And he knows how to run a good programs from Eastbrook, and they got a really solid program down there. So I think they take another step up this year.
And Belmont kind of more of the same, that grinded out offense.
And Larry Getz, we always just take Belmont for granted. Every year we're kind of just like,
man.
I mean, you every time I look at their previews and I'm going out Belmont, and you go, well, they had 4 wins, they had 5 wins. I mean, it's not horrible. Yet we just, Larry Getz, low key dude. He's not really breathing down your neck a lot of the times. He's just kind of quiet, and you kind of Belmont. They'll surprise at East Noble, and you're kind of decent, and then you kind of forget about them again.
Well, they'll control the clock. They'll on one possession they'll eat up like 2/3 of a quarter and score a touchdown, and all of a sudden, you're in a 1-score ball game.
Yeah, they just kind of grind it out, and all of a sudden they're in the game in the fourth quarter. So it's just it's one of those teams you take for granted, and you think you know what to expect, but every year or two, they surprise a team.